In a quiet African village nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering forests, life moved at a gentle pace. The community was close, bound together by traditions and the warmth of shared stories by the evening fire. But one fateful day, a shadow fell over the village when Josephine, a kind-hearted young woman, disappeared without a trace. Josephine was the light of her family. She was known for her laughter that could brighten the gloomiest day and her knack for solving everyone's problems. Her disappearance shattered her family, especially her elder sister, Paris. She wouldn't just leave. Paris exclaimed during one of the many frantic searches. She has no reason to. Her father, an old man with a face weathered by years of farming, leaned on his walking stick and sighed deeply. We'll find her, Paris. The spirits will guide us. But weeks turned into months, and their searches yielded nothing. The family turned to elders, traditional healers, and even the village priest, but every attempt to uncover Josephine's whereabouts ended in despair. Slowly, the village began to move on, but not Paris. Each night, she would sit by Josephine's empty bed, praying silently. One night, as the village lay under a blanket of stars, Paris had a dream that would change everything. In her dream, she found herself in a dimly lit room. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Josephine. But something was different. Her once radiant face was pale, her eyes hollow and haunting. Josephine! Paris cried, rushing toward her. But Josephine raised a hand, stopping her in her tracks. Why do you share my secrets with strangers? She asked, her voice sharp, echoing as though it came from a deep well. Paris stammered, what secrets? I don't understand. Where are you, Josephine? Tell me, and I'll come to you. Josephine's expression softened, and she gestured for Paris to follow. The dream shifted, and suddenly, they were walking down a narrow, dark path lined with thorny bushes. The air grew colder, and Paris felt a heavy weight pressing on her chest. Finally, they arrived at a desolate quarry that had long been abandoned and turned into a dump site. Josephine stopped and pointed to a spot on the ground. This is where you'll find me, she whispered. And then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she vanished into the darkness. Paris woke up with a jolt, her heart pounding. She sat up in bed, her breathing heavy. The dream had felt too real to dismiss. But what did it mean? Was her sister trying to communicate with her? The next morning, Paris gathered her family. I saw her, she began, her voice trembling. Josephine came to me in a dream. She showed me where to find her. Her mother, who had grown quiet and withdrawn since Josephine's disappearance, looked up for the first time in days. She came to me too, she whispered. She was crying, asking why we left her in the cold. A cousin added, she came to me last week. She begged me to bring her home. The family sat in silence, the weight of their shared visions pressing down on them. It was too much to ignore. We have to go to the quarry, Paris said firmly. If Josephine is reaching out to us, we can't ignore her. But not everyone was convinced. It's just a dream, one of her uncles said. That dump site is dangerous. What if it's a trick of the mind? Paris slammed her fist on the table. What if it's not? What if she's really there, waiting for us to bring her home? Will you let fear stop us from finding her? Her determination was infectious, and soon, the family agreed to search the dump site. Armed with shovels and guided by Paris's vivid dream, they made their way to the quarry. The place was vast and foreboding, filled with heaps of rotting garbage and a lingering stench that made their stomachs churn. This is the spot, Paris said, pointing to the exact location Josephine had shown her in the dream. They began digging. Hours passed, and exhaustion began to set in. Doubts crept into their minds. Maybe it was just a dream, someone muttered. But then, Paris's shovel hit something hard. She froze, her heart pounding. I found something, she cried. The others rushed to her side, their hands trembling as they helped her clear the dirt. What they uncovered left them speechless: Josephine's remains. The air was thick with grief as the family broke down, their cries echoing across the quarry. But their sorrow quickly turned to determination. "This is not the end," Paris said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "We will find out who did this to her." The discovery sparked an investigation, and the entire village was drawn into the mystery. As the police combed through evidence, suspicions fell on a man Josephine had once trusted, a former neighbor who had suddenly distanced himself after her disappearance. Paris confronted him in the marketplace, her voice ringing with fury. "You know what happened to my sister. Tell us the truth." The man's face turned pale, and he stammered, I don't know what you're talking about." But the pressure mounted, and the evidence was undeniable. Eventually, he broke down and confessed. "She knew too much about me," he admitted, his voice shaking. "I couldn't let her ruin everything." The village was outraged. Josephine had been a beacon of kindness, and the betrayal cut deep. During the trial, Paris took the stand. "Josephine didn't stay silent, even in death," she said, her voice strong. "She guided us to the truth, and now justice will be served." The man was sentenced to life in prison, and Josephine's family finally had the closure they so desperately needed. But her story didn't end there. It became a legend in the village, a tale of how love and justice can transcend even death. Villagers began to see Josephine as a guardian spirit, watching over those who sought the truth. Her story was told and retold, a reminder of the unbreakable bond between the living and the dead, and the enduring power of justice.